The fires fell from the sky like angry stars. Ambassador Silthra watched through the reinforced glass of the command center as another evacuation ship exploded in the upper atmosphere. Orange flames bloomed against the purple twilight, and she knew that 3,000 more of her people had just died. "How many ships do we have left?" she asked. Her voice was steady, though her thin fingers trembled against the console. "2, Ambassador," replied Navigation Officer Presh. The young Qualesh looked up from his station, his large eyes reflecting the burning sky. "Just 2, Silthra closed her eyes. 2 ships for 40,000 people. The mathematics of extinction were simple enough even for her old mind to grasp. She had lived for 200 cycles, had served her people for most of them, and now she would die with them on Tender Garden 7. The colony had been peaceful once. They had built gardens here, great spiraling towers of flowers and food that reached toward the gentle sun. The Qualesh were good at growing things. They were not good at war. In 3,000 years of galactic history, her species had never fought a battle. They had never needed to. The Krill had changed that in just 6 days. "Another ship incoming," called out someone from the defense station. "Krill destroyer entering low orbit." The building shook as something massive struck the shields. The lights flickered. Silthra gripped the edge of her console and waited for the rumbling to stop. When it did, she could hear someone crying in the corner of the room. She did not turn to look. They were all crying now in one way or another. Commander Vex of the Krill Dominion appeared on the main screen. His face was covered in thick scales and his eyes were cold and yellow. The translator rendered his words in flat mechanical tones. "Qualesh colony, your shields will fail in 1 hour. Surrender your resources and your people will be permitted to live as servants of the Dominion. Resist and we will burn everything." The screen went dark. Presh looked at Silthra with desperate hope in his eyes. "What do we do?" "We send the distress call," she said quietly. "Again. But Ambassador, no one has answered. The Galactic Council said this is an internal matter. They said, I know what they said." Silthra moved to his station and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Send it anyway. Send it on every channel, every frequency. Someone might hear." Presh hesitated, then began typing. His fingers danced across the controls, composing the message that everyone knew was useless. The galaxy had rules. Old rules. Sacred rules. One species could not interfere in the conflicts of another. To do so would be to invite chaos, war, the collapse of civilization itself. Better to let the weak die quietly than to risk upsetting the balance. Silthra had argued against those rules once, when she was young and foolish enough to believe words could change the universe. She had stood before the council and spoken of justice, of mercy, of the duty of the strong to protect the helpless. They had listened politely and done nothing. They always did nothing. "Message sent," Presh said. "Broadcasting on all emergency channels. Good." Silthra watched the tactical display. The Krill fleet surrounded their world like hungry predators. 15 warships against a colony with no weapons. It was not a battle. It was an execution. "We should evacuate," someone said. "Get to the shelters underground." "The Krill will just dig us out," Silthra replied. "Or burn away the atmosphere. We have seen what they do to colonies that hide." The room fell silent. Everyone had seen the reports from the other worlds. The Krill did not take prisoners who made them work for it. They made examples instead. Another impact shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. On the screen, the shield integrity dropped to 40%. Then 30. The Krill were not patient. Presh suddenly sat up straight. "Ambassador!" "I'm getting something on the sensors. More Krill ships?" Silthra felt numb. How many more did they need to kill 40,000 unarmed civilians? "No," Presh said slowly. His voice was strange, confused. "Something else. Something big. Multiple contacts coming in fast from deep space. Show me." The tactical display changed. Silthra stared at it, not understanding what she was seeing. Dozens of contacts, each one massive, moving at speeds that should not be possible. They were still far away, but they were coming toward the colony world. "What are they?" she whispered. Presh worked frantically at his controls. "I don't know. The signatures don't match any known species. The size, Ambassador. Some of these ships are 3 times larger than Krill dreadnoughts. And they're accelerating. They're still accelerating." "Could it be the Council?" someone asked hopefully. "Maybe they changed their minds." "The Council doesn't have ships like this," Presh said. "Nobody does." Silthra felt something strange in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize it. Hope. Dangerous, painful hope. How long until they arrive? At their current speed, 18 minutes. 18 minutes. The shields would fail before then. The Krill would begin their landing. But something was coming. Something unknown. Something that had heard their distress call and was rushing toward them with impossible speed. The building shook again, harder this time. Silthra fell against the console. When she pulled herself up, the shield display showed 15%. The Krill were hammering at their last defense with everything they had. They know, Presh said, staring at his screen. The Krill know something's coming. Their fleet is repositioning. Can you identify the incoming ships yet? Still trying, wait. I'm getting a transmission from the incoming fleet. It's addressed to us. Put it through. Static filled the room. Then a voice speaking in a language the translator struggled to process. The words came out choppy and strange. Qualish Colony. Received your distress call. Help is arriving. Hold on. The transmission ended. Silthra stood very still. In 3,000 years of galactic history, no distress call from a losing side had ever been answered. The strong did not help the weak. The powerful did not risk themselves for strangers. These were the rules that held civilization together. Someone had just broken them. Ambassador, Presh said quietly. Who are they? I don't know, she replied. But they came. Against all reason and history and law, they came. The tactical display updated. The unknown fleet had entered the system. They were spreading out, forming attack patterns. Silthra had never studied warfare, but even she could recognize the shape of what was coming. The Krill are hailing the incoming fleet, someone reported, demanding identification and warning them away. Are they slowing down? Silthra asked. No, Ambassador. They're still coming. They're coming right at the Krill fleet. The shield display dropped to 5%. Outside, the sky was full of fire. The Krill were preparing for ground assault, their landing craft moving into position. But something else was coming. Something that had crossed the stars because someone was screaming. Something that did not care about rules or history, or the way things had always been. Silthra looked at the incoming ships and wondered what kind of species would rush toward a battle they had no reason to fight. What kind of people would risk everything for strangers they had never met? She was about to find out. The first human warship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Krill formation. It was massive, covered in dark armor that seemed to absorb light itself. Weapons bristled from every surface like the spines of some ancient predator. On every screen, a simple message appeared in crisp, clear text. You have 10 minutes to cease fire and withdraw. This is your only warning. Presh looked at Silthra with wide, frightened eyes. What have we done? The ambassador watched the human fleet take up positions around their dying world and thought about the old prayer her mother had taught her. Be careful what you wish for, it went. The universe might be listening. Someone had been listening, and they had sent monsters to fight monsters. Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UNS Indomitable and watched the Krill fleet on her tactical display. 15 enemy warships surrounded a helpless colony world. She had seen this before. In the history files Earth kept locked away in deep archives. Footage of cities burning while the world watched and did nothing. Never again, humanity had promised itself. Never again would they stand by while monsters fed. Status report, she said calmly. All ships in position, Admiral, replied her tactical officer. Weapons hot, shields at maximum. The Krill are powering up their weapons. They think we're bluffing, said Captain Marcus Webb from his position near the weapons console. His destroyer, the Relentless, was positioned at the tip of their formation. They think we'll negotiate. Then they don't know us very well, Chen replied. She looked at the clock. 8 minutes since they had sent the warning. The Krill had not moved. Not a single ship had broken orbit. Their commander had sent a reply, full of threats and demands. The usual posturing of a bully who had never been challenged. Dr. Amara Okafor stepped up beside the Admiral. The xenopsychology officer had been studying the scans of the Qualish colony below. Admiral, I have to ask, are we sure about this? We've never fought an alien species before. We don't know how far this will escalate. They're killing 40,000 civilians, Doctor, Chen said quietly. That's all I need to know. But the Galactic Council, The Galactic Council can file a complaint. Chen turned to face her. Earth spent 200 years tearing itself apart in wars. We know what violence costs. We also know what silence costs. I'll take action over complicity every single time. Okafor nodded slowly. She had read the same history files. She knew about Rwanda, about Syria, about all the times humanity had failed its own people because intervention was too complicated, too expensive, too risky. The scars of those failures ran deep. That was why humanity had built this fleet. The UNS Indomitable was a dreadnought, one of 3 in service. It had been designed to defend Earth from asteroid impacts, to fight in the brutal gravity wells of gas giants, to operate in environments that would crush vessels from gentler worlds. Its armor was 30 meters thick in places, composed of materials that could withstand the pressure at the bottom of Earth's oceans. Its weapons could crack continents. Earth was a Class 12 death world. Humans built accordingly. 6 minutes, announced the tactical officer. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Krill commander, said the communications officer. He wants to negotiate. Put him through. The face that appeared on the screen was reptilian, covered in thick scales. Commander Vex of the Krill Dominion stared at Chen with cold yellow eyes. Human Admiral, he said through the translator, you have no authority in this system. The Qualesh colony violated trade agreements with the Dominion. This is a legal enforcement action. Chen almost laughed. She had heard that excuse before, dressed up in different words. You're bombing civilians. That's not enforcement, that's genocide. The Qualesh refused our reasonable demands. Your reasonable demands included slavery, Chen replied. We've read your ultimatum. Here's ours. Cease fire immediately. Withdraw your forces, or we will remove you. Vex's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile. You are one species. We control 2,000 worlds. Do you really think 47 ships can threaten the Krill Dominion? I think you have 4 minutes to find out, Chen said. Choose wisely. She cut the transmission. He's not going to back down, Webb said. His pride won't let him. I know, Chen replied. She had dealt with men like Vex before. Bullies and tyrants were the same across species lines. They understood only one language. All ships prepare for combat, she ordered. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Disable if possible, destroy if necessary. Priority is protecting the colony. We do not fire on ships attempting to flee. We are here to stop a massacre, not start one. Acknowledgments came back from all 47 ships. Chen felt the familiar weight settle onto her shoulders. She had commanded fleets in the resource wars, back when humanity was still fighting itself over the scraps of a dying planet. She had sent thousands of people to their deaths for causes both noble and stupid. This time felt different. This time she was fighting for people who could not fight for themselves. There was a purity to that, a clarity that made the weight easier to bear. 2 minutes, called the tactical officer. Dr. Okafor, Chen said quietly. When this is over, I'm going to need you to help those people down there understand what they just saw. They come from a peaceful world. They've never experienced violence like what we're about to show them. I'll do my best, Admiral, but I'm not sure there's any way to make this easy for them. There isn't, Chen agreed. But they're alive to be traumatized. That's better than the alternative. She pulled up the personnel files on her display. 47 ships. 31,000 crew members, human beings from every continent, every culture, every background. United by a simple principle, when someone screams for help, you answer. Earth had learned that lesson the hard way, written in the blood of millions who had died while the world debated and delayed. When humanity finally reached the stars, they had made a promise. Never again would they hear a cry for help and do nothing. 1 minute, announced the tactical officer. Chen opened a fleet-wide channel. Her voice went out to every ship, every crew member preparing for battle. This is Admiral Chen. In 60 seconds, we engage the Krill fleet. They are veterans of conquest, predators who have preyed on the weak for generations. They think we will negotiate. They think we will hesitate. They are wrong. We are humanity. We climbed to the top of the food chain on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We fought gravity that would crush these ships flat. We survived diseases that adapted faster than we could cure them. We built civilization in the shadow of volcanoes and earthquakes and storms that could level cities. We are the apex predators of a death world, and today we teach the galaxy what that means. Make every shot count, protect each other, and remember why we're here, for the people below who did nothing wrong except call for help. Chen out. She closed the channel and took a deep breath. The clock ticked down. 30 seconds. 20. 10. The Krill ships powered up their weapons. Time's up, Chen said. All ships engage. Show them what a Deathworld species can do. The Indomitable's main guns fired, and the battle began. The Krill had fought hundreds of battles against species that fought with careful precision, trying to minimize losses, always ready to negotiate a surrender. They had learned to fight cautiously, to apply pressure gradually, to let fear do most of the work. They were not prepared for humans. The human fleet struck like a pack of wolves, not like a traditional military force. Ships moved in coordinated, groups covering each other, striking from multiple angles simultaneously. When a Krill ship targeted one human vessel, two others would hammer it from the flanks. When the Krill tried to form a defensive line, human destroyers would break through at speeds that should have torn them apart. Chen watched it all unfold on her tactical display. Her ships moved with a grace and violence that made her proud and sad at the same time. This was what humanity was good at. This was what thousands of years of warfare had taught them. Krill Dreadnought is targeting the colony, called out the tactical officer. Charging main weapon. Web intercept, Chen ordered. Already on it, Admiral. On the display, 3 human destroyers moved between the Krill Dreadnought and the planet below. The alien ship fired, a beam of concentrated energy that could boil oceans. The destroyers took the hit on their frontal armor, shields flaring brilliant white. Damage report, Chen demanded. Relentless took heavy hits, came Webb's voice over the comm, tight with pain. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 5, but we held. The colony is safe. Fall back and get those breaches sealed. Negative, Admiral. We still have fight in us. That was humanity in a nutshell, Chen thought. Too stupid or too brave to know when to quit. The battle raged for 34 minutes. When it ended, the Krill had lost 70% of their fleet. The survivors fled toward the edge of the system, their engines screaming as they ran from the monsters they had awakened. Chen let them go. She had made her point. Lieutenant Commander Jackson Hayes watched his tactical display and grinned. It was not a nice grin. It was the expression of a predator about to strike. Raptor Squadron, form up on me, he said into his comm. We're going hunting. 12 human fighters launched from the Indomitable's bay and streaked toward the Krill formation. Hayes felt the acceleration press him back into his seat, felt his heart pound with the thrill of combat. This was what he had trained for his entire life. Not fighting other humans over resources and territory, but protecting those who could not protect themselves. The Krill had never fought human pilots before. They were about to learn a hard lesson. Enemy fighters incoming, called out his wingman. 30 contacts. Only 30? Hayes laughed. They're making this too easy. Break by pairs, standard dispersion pattern. The squadron split apart just as the Krill opened fire. Energy beams cut through the space where they had been moments before. Hayes rolled his fighter through a turn that pulled 8 Gs, his reinforced suit compensating for forces that would have killed a normal human. The Qualish would black out at 3 Gs. Most galactic species could not handle more than 4. Humans were built different. He came out of the roll behind a Krill fighter and fired. His kinetic rounds tore through the alien ship's shields like they were not there. The fighter exploded in a shower of debris. Splash 1, he reported. Make that 2, his wingman called. These guys can't turn worth a damn, it was true. The Krill fighters were fast in a straight line, but they moved like freight haulers in a turn. Human fighters were built to operate in Earth's atmosphere, to handle the brutal physics of aerial combat in thick air and heavy gravity. In space, they moved like dancers. Hayes led his squadron through the Krill formation, taking shots at engines and weapon systems. He was not trying to kill everyone, just to drive them away from the colony. But if they insisted on fighting, He would show them why humans had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing. Down on the colony, Ambassador Silthra watched the battle through the command center's displays. She could not understand what she was seeing. It went against everything she knew about warfare. "They're not being careful," Presh said beside her. His voice was filled with awe and horror. "They're just attacking like they don't care about losses." "They care," Silthra said quietly. "But they care more about protecting us." She watched as 3 human ships positioned themselves between a krill weapon and the colony. They took a direct hit that would have destroyed any Qualesh vessel. Their shields flared so bright she had to look away. When she looked back, the ships were still there, still fighting. "What are they made of?" someone whispered. "Steel and stubbornness," Presh replied. On the main screen, the tactical display showed the human fleet moving with coordinated precision. They fought like a single organism, each ship covering the others, striking in perfect timing. The krill were good warriors. They had conquered dozens of species, but they fought like individuals seeking glory. Humans fought like a pack. Commander Vex stood on his command ship and felt something he had not experienced in years. Fear. Real, primal fear. His fleet was being torn apart by creatures that should not exist. The humans moved too fast, hit too hard, coordinated too perfectly. When he tried to target their weaker ships, they would sacrifice stronger ones to protect them. When he tried to break through their lines, they would reform faster than his sensors could track. "How many have we lost?" he demanded. 8 ships destroyed, 4 crippled, his tactical officer reported. Her voice shook. "They're not taking our surrender signals." "Then broadcast on all channels. Tell them we withdraw." "Tell them, sir, 3 human destroyers are moving to intercept us directly." Vex looked at his display and saw the human ships coming straight at his dreadnought. They were tiny compared to his vessel, but they moved with such focused intent that he knew they would ram him if necessary. These were not rational warriors seeking victory with minimal cost. These were madmen willing to die to protect strangers. "All ships retreat," he ordered. "Maximum speed. Get us out of this system." His pride burned as he gave the order, but his survival instinct burned hotter. He had fought many species in his career. Prey species who begged for mercy. Predator species who respected strength and retreated when outmatched. He had never fought someone like this. Someone who came when called. Someone who fought like the universe was trying to kill them. Someone who looked at 47 ships against 15 and saw not a challenge but a rescue mission. "Commander, the humans are breaking off pursuit," his tactical officer said. "They're not following us." Vex looked at his sensors and saw it was true. The human fleet had stopped at the edge of the colony's gravity well. They were not chasing the survivors. They were letting them run. "They're not here for conquest," he said slowly. "They're here for the Qualesh." He understood then what he had done. He had attacked the weak while the strong were watching. In the galaxy, he knew, the strong did not care. But these humans were different. They were strong in ways the Dominion had never imagined, and they used that strength not to conquer but to protect. The krill fleet limped toward the edge of the system. Behind them, human ships began descending toward the colony. Vex recorded everything, knowing his empire would need to see this, would need to understand that something new had entered the galaxy, something terrifying and wonderful and completely unexpected. "Admiral," Chen watched the last krill ship jump to faster-than-light travel and felt the tension drain from her shoulders. Around her, the bridge crew was cheering. They had won. 0 human ships lost, minimal casualties, and the colony below was safe. "Damage reports," she ordered. "Relentless took the worst of it," replied her tactical officer. 23 dead, 47 wounded. "Hull breach is sealed. The other ships report minor damage. 23 dead." Chen closed her eyes briefly. 23 people who would never see Earth again. 23 families who would receive the notification that their loved one had died fighting for people they had never met. On a world whose name they could not pronounce. But 40,000 Qualesh were alive because of them. "Send my condolences to Captain Webb," she said, "and inform all ships to begin rescue operations. I want medical teams on the surface within the hour. Engineering crews to help with repairs. Everything we have, we share." "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the colony," said her communications officer. "It's Ambassador Silthra. She's requesting permission to meet with you." "Tell her I'll come to her," Chen replied. "She's been through enough. She shouldn't have to come to us." An hour later, Chen stood in the ruins of the Qualish Command Center. The building had taken several hits during the bombardment. One wall was completely gone, open to the purple sky. Rubble covered the floor. Blood stained some of the consoles. Ambassador Silthra approached her slowly. The Qualish was tall and thin, almost fragile-looking. Her skin was pale blue and her eyes were large and dark. She moved with careful grace, like she might break if she stumbled. Chen, in her combat armor, felt like a tank standing next to a flower. "Ambassador," Chen said, her translator converting her words to Qualish. "I'm Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen. I apologize for the delay in our arrival." "We came as fast as we could." Silthra stared at her for a long moment. Then she did something Chen did not expect. She fell to her knees. "Please don't," Chen said quickly, stepping forward. "Please, Ambassador." "You don't need to." "You came," Silthra whispered. Her voice broke. "In 3,000 years, no one has ever come. We sent the call expecting silence, expecting death. And you came." Chen knelt down carefully, trying to make herself smaller, less intimidating. Even kneeling, she was taller than the standing Qualish around them. "Someone was screaming," she said simply. "That's enough reason. But why? You don't know us. We have nothing to offer you. Why would you risk your people for strangers?" Chen thought about all the history lessons, all the wars, all the times humanity had failed to help, because it was too complicated or too expensive. She thought about the promise her species had made when they finally grew up. "Because we know what it's like to scream and hear only silence," she said. "We swore we would never let that happen to anyone else. Not if we could help it." Silthra reached out with one thin hand. Chen extended her own, dwarfing the ambassador's delicate fingers. They shook hands, two species meeting for the first time over the ashes of a battle that should never have needed to happen. "Thank you," Silthra said. "Thank you for being what the galaxy needs but never expected," Chen smiled. "That's humanity's specialty. Being unexpected." Corporal Maria Diaz stepped out of the dropship and into chaos. The colony was a mess of broken buildings and scared civilians. Fires burned in the distance. The air smelled like smoke and fear. "All right, people," she called to her squad. "Medical supplies to the left, construction drones to the right. Let's move. These folks need help." She grabbed a crate of medical supplies and lifted it easily. Behind her, she heard someone gasp. She turned and saw a group of Qualish staring at her with wide eyes. "Sorry," she said, setting the crate down more gently. "Did I scare you?" One of the Qualish, an elderly male with pale blue skin, stepped forward slowly. He pointed at the crate. How did you lift that? It weighs at least 300 standard units." Diaz looked at the crate, then back at him. "This? It's not that heavy. Maybe 40 kilos. 40. The Qualish seemed to struggle with the concept. "Our strongest workers need machinery to move such weight. You lifted it like it was nothing." "Oh." Diaz looked down at her arms. She was not even that strong by human standards. "Yeah, I guess Earth has higher gravity than most places. We're all pretty strong compared to, She trailed off, realizing she might be making things worse. Dr. Okafor had warned them about this. The Qualish came from a gentle world with low gravity. Average human strength would seem superhuman to them. "It's okay," the elderly Qualish said kindly. "We are grateful for your help, no matter how strange you may be." Diaz smiled and got to work. Over the next few hours, she watched her fellow humans interact with the Qualish. It was awkward and beautiful at the same time. Humans trying to be gentle with people who seemed made of glass. Qualish trying to understand creatures who moved with casual violence through their damaged world. At one point, Diaz saw a human engineer casually push aside a piece of debris that had trapped 3 Qualish in a building. The metal beam was as thick as her leg. She just grabbed it and shoved it out of the way. The Qualish she rescued looked at her like she was a god. "We're not gods," Diaz wanted to tell them. "We're just from a really mean planet." Dr. Amara Okafor sat across from Ambassador Silthra in what remained of the diplomatic quarters. The Qualish leader looked exhausted but alive. That was something. "Tell me about Earth," Silthra said quietly. "I need to understand what kind of world creates people like you." Okafor considered her words carefully. "Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. That's the highest rating. Most species cannot survive there without extensive protection. The gravity alone would crush you. The diseases would kill you in days." The wildlife? Silthra prompted. "We have predators that hunt for sport, not just food. We have insects that carry deadly diseases. We have plants that can kill you with a touch. Our oceans have creatures large enough to swallow your buildings. Our weather can level cities in minutes. Okafor paused. Everything on Earth tried to kill us as we evolved. So we learned to kill back, to adapt, to survive no matter what. Silthro was quiet for a long moment. That sounds horrible. It was, Okafor agreed. It made us strong, but it also made us hard. We know violence in ways most species can't imagine. We fought each other for thousands of years before we finally learned to work together. And yet you came to help us. Because we also learned compassion, Okafor said. We learned that strength without mercy is just cruelty. That power without purpose is just destruction. It took us a long time and we made terrible mistakes. But we learned. Silthra nodded slowly. Your admiral said something to me. She said you came because someone was screaming. Is it really that simple for humans? It should be that simple for everyone, Okafor replied. But yes, for us it is. We spent too long ignoring screams. We won't make that mistake again. Meanwhile, 3,000 light-years away, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. Counselor Tavan of the Irilith watched the footage for the third time. Each viewing made him more uncomfortable. The human ships moved with frightening aggression. The weapons they employed could crack planets. The way they fought with no hesitation, no negotiation, just pure focused violence. This is unacceptable, declared Counselor Prex, a Horthian from a high-gravity world, though even their world was only Class 5. Nothing compared to Earth's Class 12 rating. The humans violated the non-interference doctrine. They attacked a krill fleet in what was legally an internal dispute. They stopped a genocide, countered Counselor Mira, a Qualesh representative who had arrived too late to help her own people. 40,000 civilians were about to die. The law is clear, Prex insisted. One species cannot interfere in the conflicts of another. To do so invites chaos. To not do so invites atrocity, Mira shot back. Tavan raised a tentacle for silence. As senior counselor, he had the responsibility of finding consensus. We must consider what precedent this sets. If the humans can ignore non-interference, what stops other species from doing the same? What stops wars from spreading? What stops genocides from succeeding? Mira demanded. The council chamber fell silent. I have studied the humans, Tivan said finally. They are unique. They evolved on a world that should not have supported intelligent life. Class 12 Deathworlds are considered incompatible with civilization, yet they built one anyway. They are physically powerful, mentally resilient, and socially cohesive in ways we do not fully understand. You sound like you admire them, Prex said coldly. I fear them, Tivan replied honestly. Any species that can survive Earth is dangerous. But I also fear what happens if we try to stop them. Did you see the footage? They defeated a krill fleet in half an hour. The krill have been expanding for centuries. The humans stopped them without losing a single ship. So what do you propose? Asked another counselor. Tivan thought carefully. We do nothing. We observe. We do not sanction them because we cannot enforce such sanctions. We do not embrace them because we do not understand them. We wait and see if they are saviors or threats, and if they're both, Mira asked quietly. Then we pray they remain pointed at our enemies and not at us. The vote was close, but the decision was made. The Galactic Council would take no action against humanity. They would watch, wait, and hope they had not just unleashed something they could not control. Back on Tendergarden 7, Navigation Officer Presh stood with Admiral Chen on a hill overlooking the colony. The human ships were still in orbit, protecting the world as repairs continued below. Can I ask you something? Presh said. Of course. In your message, you said you've received 847 distress calls in your history, and your government's ignored 846 of them. That's terrible. Chen nodded slowly. It is. We're not perfect, Presh. We made mistakes. Horrible, unforgivable mistakes. But we learned from them. That's what matters. What changed? What made you decide to come this time? Chen was quiet for a moment, looking up at the stars. A long time ago, humans had a saying. Never again. We said it after each tragedy, each genocide we failed to stop. But we kept failing. Kept ignoring the screams because intervention was too complicated, too expensive, too risky. We said never again so many times it became meaningless. She turned to face Presh. When we reached the stars, we made a new promise. This time we meant it. No more debates. No more delays. Someone screams, we answer. Simple as that. But what if the krill come back? What if they bring their whole empire? Then we'll fight them, Chen said calmly. We're very good at fighting. It's what our world taught us. But we're also good at protecting. That's what we taught ourselves. The Krill will learn that lesson one way or another. Presh looked at the human ships in orbit, massive and powerful and ready for violence at a moment's notice. They were terrifying. They were also the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Thank you, he said, for coming, for fighting, for caring about strangers. Chen put a hand on his shoulder. Her grip was gentle, but Presh could feel the strength in it. The strength that came from climbing to the top of a food chain on a world that tried to kill everything on it. You're not strangers anymore, she said. You're under our protection now. And humans take care of their own. High above them, human fighters patrolled the sky. In the colony below, human medics and engineers worked alongside Qualesh civilians to rebuild what had been destroyed. And in the darkness of space, human warships stood watch. The galaxy had been put on notice. There was a new apex predator among the stars. And unlike the old predators, these ones protected their prey instead of devouring them. It was a lesson the Krill would not forget. And one that would spread across 1,000 worlds, carried in whispers and broadcasts and desperate hope. When you scream for help, someone might actually answer now. Someone terrifying and compassionate and utterly human. Senator Patricia Mboto stood before the United Nations Security Council and felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. On the screens around her, images from Tendergarden 7 played on repeat. Human ships destroying Krill vessels, human medics helping alien civilians, human engineers rebuilding a world they had never seen before. The question before us is simple, she said to the assembled representatives. The Krill Empire is mobilizing its core fleet. Intelligence suggests they're planning a retaliatory strike against Earth. Do we wait for them to come to us or do we strike first? General Marcus Stone, head of Earth Defense Forces, leaned forward. Senator, with respect, this isn't a debate. They threatened our home. We should hit them now, hit them hard, show them what happens when they threaten humanity. And start a war that could spread across the galaxy? Mboto countered. General, we just established ourselves as protectors. If we launch a preemptive strike, we become the aggressors. We become survivors, Stone replied. That's what we're good at. We're also good at making peace, Mao, said Ambassador Liu from the diplomatic corps. We've only been in space for 50 years. We can't afford to make enemies of every major power. The debate raged for hours. Mboto listened to all sides, understanding the fear that drove both positions. Humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. Now they had to decide what kind of galactic citizen they would be. Finally, Admiral Chen's voice came through from the Indomitable, still in orbit around Tendergarden 7. If I may speak, Senator? Please, Admiral. You're the one who started this. Tell us how it ends. With a message, Chen said simply. Not a threat. Not a plea. A statement of fact. We tell the Krill exactly what they're dealing with. Then we let them make an informed decision. 12 hours later, every communication device in Krill space received the same transmission. It played on military channels, civilian broadcasts, even personal devices. There was no escaping it. Admiral Chen's face appeared on screens across 2,000 worlds. Behind her, human warships floated in perfect formation. To the Krill Dominion, she began. My name is Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth. You know us now as the species that defeated your fleet at Tendergarden 7. I'm going to tell you exactly who we are and what we're capable of. Then you can decide what happens next. The transmission showed images of Earth, massive storms that could swallow continents, volcanoes that could darken the sky for years, oceans deep enough to crush steel. This is our home. Earth. A Class 12, Deathworld. The highest classification. Most species need protective suits just to stand on our surface. The gravity would crush you. The air would poison you. The life would eat you. The images shifted to human history. Ancient warriors with primitive weapons. Medieval armies clashing in brutal combat. Modern wars with weapons that could end civilization. We are apex predators who hunted megafauna to extinction with stone tools. We are persistence hunters who ran prey to death across continents. We are pack animals who wage total war against our own kind, then unite against external threats. We have fought 10,000 wars. We have ended species. We have split atoms and touched distant worlds. We learned violence in a crucible that would kill you in days. Now the images showed space stations, starships, massive construction projects, but we also learned compassion. We learned art and music and love. We learned that strength without mercy is just cruelty, that power without purpose is just destruction. We became more than survivors. We became protectors. The transmission showed the battle at Tendergarden 7. Krill ships burning, human vessels taking hits to shield civilians. You chose to prey on the weak because you thought no one would stop you. You were wrong. We will always stop you, not because we seek conquest, not because we want your worlds, but because when someone screams for help we answer. Chen's face filled the screen again. Her expression was cold and determined. You have 72 hours to release every slave in your empire, to withdraw from every conquered world, to submit to Galactic Council oversight. If you do this, we will help you transition to peaceful coexistence. We will share our technology, our resources, our knowledge. We would rather have you as allies than enemies. She leaned forward slightly. But if you refuse, you will learn what a real Deathworld species can do when we stop holding back. We will dismantle your empire piece by piece. We will free every slave. We will protect every victim. And we will not stop until you are no longer a threat to anyone. The transmission showed the human fleet, massive and powerful, weapons bristling from every surface. This is not a negotiation.
This is not a threat.
This is a statement of fact. You can adapt or you can be removed. The choice is yours. You have 72 hours. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. Emperor Krilltak sat in his throne room and watched the human message for the 5th time. Around him, his military advisors argued about strategy and honor and pride. He ignored them and focused on the images of Earth, a world that killed for fun, that created life just to test it in the harshest environment imaginable, that birthed a species capable of such terrible violence and such surprising compassion. Your Majesty, we must respond, urged General Kresh. We cannot appear weak. If we surrender to their demands, every species will think they can challenge us. If we fight them, we will lose, Krilltak said quietly. The throne room fell silent. Your Majesty, Kresh said carefully, I have reviewed every scrap of intelligence we have on humanity. The Emperor continued. They have nuclear weapons capable of sterilizing worlds. Biological weapons that adapt faster than we can defend. Kinetic weapons that can shatter continents. They built all of this not to conquer their neighbors, but to survive their own planet. He stood and walked to the window, looking out over his capital city. They fight with a unity we cannot match. When one of their ships is damaged, others sacrifice themselves to protect it. When their people are threatened, they mobilize entire fleets without debate or delay. They have something we lack, General. They have a cause beyond conquest. Then what do we do? Kresh asked. Krilltak thought about his empire. 2,000 worlds built on the backs of slaves and conquered peoples. Built on the principle that the strong take what they want and the weak exist to serve. It had worked for centuries, but the humans had changed the rules. We adapt, he said finally. We release the slaves. We withdraw from conquered territories. We submit to oversight, and we hope the humans are as compassionate as they claim. But Your Majesty, the shame. There is no shame in survival, General. Only in extinction. Krilltak turned to face his advisors. The humans could destroy us. They chose to offer mercy instead. That is not weakness. That is the confidence of a species that knows it has already won. He returned to his throne and made the hardest decision of his reign. Send the message. We accept their terms, and pray to whatever gods might listen that we never have to face them in true war. 71 hours after the message was sent, the Krill Dominion announced its unconditional acceptance of human demands. Across 2,000 worlds, slaves were freed. Conquered peoples were given back their autonomy. The greatest empire in the galaxy humbled itself before a species that had been spacefaring for less than a century. The galaxy watched in shock. 6 months later, Ambassador Silthra stood in the newly built human embassy on Tendergarden 7 and marveled at how much had changed. The colony was rebuilt better than before. Human construction techniques had created buildings that could withstand the kind of bombardment that had nearly destroyed them. More importantly, the Qualesh were no longer afraid. They walked among human engineers and soldiers with familiarity now. Children played near the Marines who pretended to be scared of toy weapons wielded by beings who could barely lift their armor. Ambassador, Presh called, running up to her. He had been promoted to Deputy Navigation Officer and served as liaison between Qualesh and human forces. There's something you need to see. He led her to the communication center and pulled up a display. It showed the Deep Space Monitoring Network, the same system that had received their original distress call. Another SOS, Presh said quietly, from the Velthan Commonwealth 200 light-years from here. They're under attack by pirates. They sent a distress call on all channels. Silthra felt her heart clench. Did the Council respond? No, but look, Presh pointed to the display. 3 human ships are already en route. They left Earth's defense perimeter the moment the call was received. No debate. No delay. Just response. Silthra watched the markers showing human ships racing toward another species in trouble, and she felt tears in her eyes. They really meant it. When they said never again, they really meant it. They're going to change everything, Presh said. The whole galaxy. The old rules about non-interference, about letting the strong prey on the weak. The humans are rewriting everything. For the better, Silthra said firmly. They're showing us what we should have been all along. Protectors, not bystanders. She looked out the window at the human ships in orbit. They were still there, still guarding the colony, still ready to fight at a moment's notice. They would probably always be there now, or somewhere like here. Wherever someone was screaming, that was humanity's gift to the galaxy.